The joint work of the scientists at Los Alamos resulted in the world's first nuclear explosion. Near Alamogordo, New Mexico, on July 16, 1945, Oppenheimer had given the site the codename Trinity in mid-1944 and said later that it was from one of John Donne's holy sonnets. According to the historian Greg Herken, this naming could have been an allusion to Jean Tatlock, who had committed suicide a few months before and had in the 1930s introduced Oppenheimer to Donne's work. Oppenheimer later recalled that, while witnessing the explosion, he thought of a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Years later he said that another verse had also entered his head at that time. Kelo, Smi Lokaksha Pravdo Lokan Samahartamiha Pravrta. But these, which he translated as, I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. In 1965, when he was persuaded to quote again for a television broadcast, he said, "We knew the world would not be the same. A few people laughed. A few people cried. Most people were silent." I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty and, to impress him, takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that, one way or another. Among those present with Oppenheimer in the control bunker at the site were his brother Frank and Brigadier General Thomas Farrell. When Jeremy Bernstein asked Frank what Robert's first words after the test had been, the answer was, "I guess it worked." Farrell summarized Robert's reaction as follows. Dr. Oppenheimer, on whom had rested a very heavy burden, grew tenser as the last seconds ticked off. He scarcely breathed. He held on to a post to steady himself. For the last few seconds, he stared directly ahead, and then when the announcer shouted, "Now!" and there came this tremendous burst of light, followed shortly thereafter by the deep growling roar of the explosion, his face relaxed into an expression of tremendous relief. Rabi noticed Oppenheimer's disconcerting triumphalism. I'll never forget his walk. I'll never forget the way he stepped out of the car. His walk was like high noon. This kind of strut. He had done it at an assembly at Los Alamos on August 6, the evening of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. Oppenheimer took to the stage and clasped his hands together, like a prize-winning boxer, while the crowd cheered. He noted his regret the weapon had not been available in time to use against Nazi Germany. But he and many of the project staff were very upset about the bombing of Nagasaki, as they did not feel the second bomb was necessary from a military point of view. He traveled to Washington on August 17 to hand-deliver a letter to Secretary of War Henry Stimson expressing his revulsion and his wish to see nuclear weapons banned. In October 1945, Oppenheimer was granted an interview with President Harry S. Truman. The meeting went badly after Oppenheimer said he felt he had blood on my hands. The remark infuriated Truman and put an end to the meeting. Truman later told his Undersecretary of State Dean Acheson, "I don't want to see that son of a bitch in this office ever again." For his services as director of Los Alamos, Oppenheimer was awarded the Medal for Merit by President Truman in 1946.